Not sure if anyone can hear me or if this is even doing anything. Uh-oh. Oh, no, no, I don't care about that part. Description, crap. Why is this so hard? This should really not be this hard. Oh my. Oh, okay. Yeah, there we go. Awesome. Well, hello. I don't know if people are going to be online, but I'm honestly really excited to talk about this. It's the end of Plot of Conquerors. Well, not really the end, but the rest of what Plot of Conquerors was going to be. There's a lot to go over with that. A lot of really exciting things, to be honest. It was gonna, it really it was an epic campaign, the first time and this time too. And I can't talk enough about how proud I am. That I pulled it off. Not this time, but at first. This campaign began as a labor of love for friends. Just wanting to run some D&D for a number of people who really thought that it was just the coolest thing in the world and had a great time with it. So on we go. Talk a little bit about Act 1, what I talked about already, and then Act 2 through 5, the rest of the campaign. So go here. So Act 1 was the beginning. What you guys already saw. New Haven was ransacked. The characters became heroes. They contacted by Pelor and Melora, and really became, the beginnings of their future. They explored the Goblin Fortress up in the core mountains to the east. They got out of that fortress on the other side of the mountains and had the option to explore the plains of New Nora. Came to Lori. They didn't explore Yarrow. This group didn't, at least. Encounter the Booyogs, the Coven of Booyogs, and the amazing fight there. They could have explored Yarrow, that old elven fortress, now taken over by hobgoblins, and interact with the interesting characters there, perhaps, or just die. And then finding Blackstone, whether bringing refugees from Lori like this group did, or not, just wandering over that direction. Interacting in Blackstone for a little bit. The original group ran through Blackstone a little bit differently. They had a little bit more involvement with the lore, but they also had a little bit more involvement with the lore in general. And finally, the siege at Blackstone, that goblinoid army coming and sieging the city, and the wonderful warfare stuff with that. By the way, the pictures in all of these images are credited, so you can see that in a little small print in the bottom. I do like to have at least a little bit of that. I don't have artist names or anything like that. I will work on that for the future, but I want to at least provide you the website I got it from, so you can hopefully go and find that if any of these images strike your fancy. And in the case of two of them, they will actually be done by a friend of mine, Olivia, who did some art for me to publish these. So we'll see if that ever happens, but that's a different problem. So Act 2, what was the rest? Or what was the next steps? The next steps was, K&W Rules, Kingdoms in Warfare, by MCDM Productions. And this act actually was the one that changed the most heavily from the original iteration. In the original iteration of this game, Act 2 was the Elven Forest, and meeting the Lich that resides there, and talking with the elves and working with them. And then Act 3 now is kind of what Act 2 was then. But there was going to be a goblin horde. There was a horde of goblins that resided in the northern part of the core mountains. And there was going to be some intrigue, a little interaction between these two powerful groups now. Now it's not just the characters and their merry band of misfits, but they have an army by their side. They have people to serve them. They have connections and all kinds of things with that. So this was going to become a little bit more kingdom-y, a little bit more, involved in that goblin horde. It was really interesting. I started building it before this really began breaking down, but the Goblin Horde was going to be led by three goblinoids, a goblin, a bugbear, and a hobgoblin, of course. And they would be God touched. So it would be, God touched against God touched at the end of this whole thing. It would have been really, it was a fun, would have been a fun fight. I didn't design them totally. I didn't have all their combat figured out, but I was really intrigued to kind of determine what was going to really go on there. The original goblin God touch that they encountered in that little kind of barn area when they were going to explore Yarrow and their flying beasts. That was a goblin touched by Kargora Bayeg, the whip, and hence he used whips. I think I was going to have this God touched be Maglubiet himself, so a little bit more conquery, and then the bugbear was going to be touched by Skigaret, which is their god of fear and death and disease. So go for some really interesting, kind of breakdowns, play with exhaustion a little bit was my thought. And then the hobgoblin, of course, being touched by name of God whom I cannot remember. But, an interesting god that is focused on bravery. I don't remember the name, but I remember they have a god of courage and bravery. So this was going to be a god-touched hobgoblin, playing around with that a little bit, maybe a little bit of inverse as well, because they are still goblins, so their image of bravery is not just is not standing up to the man, because the whole point is that you don't stand up to the man, but their image of bravery is charging to the front lines without regard for your own lives. So a little bit of that, maybe a little bit of giving you fear. So yeah, it was gonna be interesting idea. Didn't get too far into designing that, but yeah. Before I proceed to the next slide, this is actually one of those images done by Olivia. This was going to be the cover of part 1, Goblins Attack. So it was, Plot of Conquerors at the bottom, part 1, Goblins Attack, and that was going to be New Haven and the destruction therein. I was really happy with this. I think it looks basic. Olivia is a very traditional artist, but it felt very different from other things that you can see on DM's Guild or things like that. It's maybe not quite as polished, because I'm not, Mr. Moneybags who can afford artists that have all of those levels. But I did pay her for this image, because I thought it was really, really fun and really interesting. If there are people in chat, y'all please say hello. It really does mean a lot just to have an idea that people are actually watching, because I see 3 views, but that doesn't mean anything. I've learned at this point just not to trust that anymore. But yeah, so that was Act 2. Interact with the Goblin Horde, have that little intrigue, and then be done with them and move on. Probably finish them off completely. And then finally really be able to advance into the Elven Forest. So then, Act 3, obviously, the Elven Forest. And I linked 2 images here because this is really something I believe in firmly. When you talk about an Elven Forest, I want it to be flippin' weird, flippin' strange. I actually looked up the images that I used for this. I just looked up strange and unique forest, and this is what I got. So that's probably some images I would have taken as inspiration, at least to a point. I wanted it to feel Fey-like, Arcadia-like. This is where the strange nature beings dwell, and I really wanted it to be something intriguing, weird, and different. And this is where they would meet kind of not the ultimate villain of this campaign, as you'll learn, but really the one that I think sticks with most people, which is the Lich, aka Blothy, because I had to name this when I first ran this campaign on the fly, and I am not good at naming things on the fly at all. So I came up with Blothy. So there you go. But then later, obviously refined my ideas on what are elves and why are they weird and why are they strange. And one of the things that I think an elf should be is I think an elf should be named after something. They should be named for a reason. And so I called this one Stairs into Eternity, because Blothy has been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years. He's seen the the birth of the humans. He's seen their rise, and he believes that he will see their fall. And that is his motivation in many ways, is to not conquer the world on behalf of himself, but to conquer the world on behalf of anti-human or anti-non-elven sentiment. So that would lead him to do some truly, truly awful things. This whole act actually really is... It's a favorite of mine because I think it plays into a lot of the things that I can do very well, which was actually to trick my players. The first time that I ran this, the players went into the Elven Forest. They went to Lovey, the capital, for lack of a better word, in the center of the forest, the literal geographical center of the forest. And they met this interesting elf in a bar. They met the king. They talked with all these people, all these things. And one of the characters was played by my wife, and she wanted to get down with an elf, I think. I don't remember exactly what it was, but for some reason, she was enticed by elves. I think she wanted to have a baby or something like that. It was the whole character's motivation was, I wanna birth a child. And so I played up this elf. He was sexual, he was forward, he was interested, and he seduced her. But, being the lich that no one knows he is, he seduced her into becoming a Death Knight. And that kind of spawned the whole idea for this act, which is you get to Lovey, you meet these people, you meet, the king, who is not trustworthy at all, and his court that are just puppets, and you meet some random elves out and about, and this whole forest just seems strange. It feels weird. It feels hostile, but you know that you're here for a reason, because there is evil somewhere, and you still haven't really found it. There was some sign on all the previous things that you fought, and they eventually led you here. And and in the forest, when you look about, if anybody ever casted Detect Magic, they always saw this just slight shade of necromancy over everything. So there was obviously something sinister here, and the necromancy just got bigger and bigger and deeper and more into everything around until you got to Lovey, and then suddenly it was gone, as if something had obscured it. And so he seduces her to his dark ways, to the darkness on the other side. Very interesting villain, and every time I've run this campaign that got this far, which was the other two times, Blothy or the Lich or Stairs into Eternity takes one of the people and seduces them in some way or another. I had a character who was trapped in a kobold's body and just wanted out. Well, I can help you with that. I have great power, never saying that he's a lich, of course, but having great power and having the availability to help. He hears you whine or complain at some point in the city, and just comes up and approaches and says, I could help you with that. What was another character that I don't remember? I think just wanted power, just wanted strength, had fallen a few times in combat recently, and this elf came up and said, hey, I heard you complaining, about that. Well, I am a great and powerful elf. I could teach you wonderful things. But I set a rule. Because this is, if you're gonna try and tempt your players like this, it is very easy to always get it. Always. because you're going to know the things that are going to tick your players and are going to say, yep, that's the thing that will get you. And so I set a rule. I said, if you ever say no, he stops. He cannot proceed with the ritual. The ritual doesn't work unless the person is willing. Now, he doesn't have to be willing to do what the ritual actually is, but has to be willing to do the ritual, whatever that means. And you have to get permission 3 times. So I had to spin this a little bit. I had to defend myself to a couple of these players, but it was really fun. And then you get to do the, right at the end, you get him in the ritual. You say, okay, one last time. This is gonna hurt. This is gonna suck. Are you okay with this? I promise it'll be worth it. And they say yes. And you say, okay, hand me your character sheet. You're gone. And every player I've ever pulled it off with absolutely lost their goddamn mind. They lost their absolute goddamn mind. And it was worth every second. But I really believe that should be tough. It should be tough on you, the Dungeon Master, to, you can't just pop in and say, hey, look at me, I'm the Dungeon Master, I get to say whatever I want, and now suddenly, you've got them eating out of your hand. I don't think that's any fun. I don't think that's really the point. You gotta put in some effort. So, with this group, if they've gotten to this point, 100% I had one of them. Probably not Courtney. She's too easy. I know her too well, my wife. But I bet I could have gotten my sister Smalls with something. And if not Smalls, then maybe Taco. I think I could have gotten him with the promise of an easier life. Hey, I can send you home. I can change all this. I can fix it to be the way that it used to be. But yeah, so that's Act 3. Is one of the players is tempted, and they are obviously taken away. Make a new character, and you spend time with the king. He doesn't really like you. You probably leave, or if you don't, then there's some things that can happen in Lovey. But chances are you're going to leave eventually. For some reason or another, there's going to be some quest that sends you away. And most likely what it is that there are demons and devils, which if you know anything about D&D, that is not how things work. They do not work together. Attacking Gatewatch, which is a city to the east on this continent that separates the line between the elven and human kingdoms. But so they leave, and in the meantime, Blothy finally has all he needs. He has a willing Death Knight, he has assembled his power, he has all of this necromantic energy saved up, and while the heroes are gone, Blothy burns that forest to the ground and makes a necropolis. So all those people you met that you probably liked, because I want to make the people in Lovey likable. They all die again, just like New Haven, and it's just a kick in the teeth. But again, worth absolutely every second. So so Act 3 ends with a big ultimate fight against Blothy. Coming back to the forest, probably seeing him either using Kingdoms and Warfare rules and doing some real mass combat, or just a big old lich fight. I believe in a big old lich fight. In the first iteration of this game, they actually spent quite a while, but I also kind of broke this up into 2 acts, where Act 2 was in the forest, and the end of Act 2 is losing that hero to his seduction. And the end of Act 3 is fighting the lich. So most of Act 3 in that was assembling power, because they knew they were not powerful enough to take on a lich and a necropolis. So they went through and met the Tabaxi to the north, and They dealt with some giants out in the desert and just got allies, and that culminated in the big fight, which I love from fiction when you get all of the friends you made along the way. At the end of the day, what are the real lessons here is the friends we made along the way. And I love that big fight when we finally have everybody show up and help out. And that's what that was. And that's probably what it would have been here. And getting into Act 4, there's quite a bit of break. Usually at this point I say, okay, it's winter. Your characters need to rest, need to recuperate. You just went through this huge big thing. The forest is destroyed. This is usually when players want to go back to New Haven. Maybe they learned some things about the town and what it was. Maybe some, maybe not a lot, but the characters at least take a break and rest through winter, and we head into Act 4. Act 4 is by far my favorite. I have always adored the demons and devils of Dungeons and Dragons, and the idea that they are different, that, the chaotic evil demons and the lawful evil devils hate each other and have the blood war and all of these amazing things. I absolutely adore it. And so I screwed with them hard. So I put together this idea that Zariel, who is probably one of my favorite new characters from this edition, the devil princess or devil duchess of the first, former fallen angel and, watcher of the blood war, who turned to Asmodeus in a desperate feat to turn against him, but to fix the blood war, to win it, because they needed to hold these demons back. I absolutely love this character, and have been since she appeared for the first time in the D&D 5th edition playtest, which I was involved in. And so Zariel and Baphomet, the Lord of Beasts, the Lord of the, no, not Lord, the, what was it? The Labyrinthine something, I don't remember, not the point. Absolutely love them, so they are in love. They are turned toward each other, unknown by any demon lord and unknown by Asmodeus. They have fallen in love, and the two of them begin launching attacks against the mortal plane together. And I think it was a fun idea. I dig it a lot. I love this idea of, of the demon lord and the devil duchess, coming together in some strange fashion. Now, in this case, it's because they've been turned mentally by Maglubiet, but that's the whole point of the plot of Conquerors. This is something that Maglubiet has put together for over eons, over ages and eras, and finally turned the two of them together against the mortal plane. So you encounter a whole bunch of demons and devils, you fight a whole bunch of them, and you figure out what the source of all of these incursions is, and then decide, after a little bit of research, which one to go after first. Now, the first group that did it, they went after Baphomet first, had a great little dungeon crawl through the abyss and into his labyrinth. Did a great little thing for that. I'll actually bring that up in another video. It's probably going to be one of my topics in a couple months, is my design of dungeons in this campaign, and specifically his, I thought was absolutely spectacular. I made them do mazes. They literally had to do mazes and fight along the way. And then, of course, Zariel coming in. So they destroyed Baphomet and left him there, and then created this power vacuum. And it's a huge problem. Zariel is furious. You have killed her love, and she finds a way to turn Asmodeus that this is a bad thing. You know, at the end of the day, they destroyed this demon lord, which created this power vacuum. Everything is going sideways in the abyss, and it's not good for anything, especially the Blood War. And so I had Primus from Mechanus summon the players. You know, they got subpoenaed, basically. And so they had to show up in court on Mechanus. They were pulled in by a Merid, and they stood trial for destroying a demon lord and destabilizing all of creation, which is not exactly a terribly lawful thing to do. And they turned it around. They did a great job with the courtroom scene, and they just infuriated Zariel more and more and more until she grabbed them in a fit of rage and transported them back to hell. And they had this great, huge, epic fight on the plains of Avernus, and slew Zariel as well. And absolutely just spectacular combat. That ended up being the last session of that game, but I knew at that time even what the ending of this whole chronicle, this whole plot of Conquerors would be, and that is Maglubiet. And that's really the end of this campaign. Act 5 is just one big, massive, drag-out destructo for the sake of the universe and everything in it fight. And that is with Maglubiet and everyone you have slain to this point. So every boss, from Briark to the Booyogs to the God-touched goblinoids to Blothy to Zariel to Baphomet, that whole way through, slay them all again, this time on the plain of Acheron, that unending battlefield, the epic combat to end all epic combats, and then finally, Maglubiet himself. And I still have not built Maglubiet. I don't know that I ever will. I don't know that I can make him tough enough, weird enough, strange enough, unique enough. I don't know that I'll ever really get this campaign all the way to the end. But someday, perhaps, when I really get all my ducks in a row. But Maglubiet is to be the final ending, and that was about it. It's a lot, I know. It's a huge epic campaign. You know, it started out just level 0, and just playing with my friends, and went all the way to level 26, and that wasn't even the ending. I probably would have gotten them to 30. We'll talk a little bit about epic levels in 5th edition, which to me is something special and different and not the same as epic levels used to be. But there's still so much more to explore. This is not the end. This is a campaign. Was a work of a lot of love. It was made for friends. I've continued to build this campaign for years since I entered the first time, and I can't imagine I'll stop running it. Even when I'm old and done with 5th edition, even when I'm done with D&D, I truly believe that this system is evergreen. You know, anything that can do a fantasy save the world plot can handle Plot of Conquerors, as long as you've got gods and chaos and evil in the world that needs to be slain and ended for the good of all kind. The Plot of Conquerors works. So one day this will be a thing that actually happens, but for the meantime, it just is what it is. So what's the future? Still to talk about. I'm going to talk about the funky method. I'm going to talk about the beginning of campaigns. I believe probably my signature way, but I think something that people should use and can use, which is the funky method. Magic items. My thoughts on them, the ones that I've made before. Actually find my notes and talk a little bit about that more in depth. Dungeon design, I brought it up earlier. I want to talk about the Labyrinth for Baphomet. There was a Beholder dungeon earlier that I didn't even mention because there's so much that happens in Act 3. And then epic fight design and my theories with that. You know, a big part of this campaign is that there are small fights along the way. There are dungeons and slogs of you gotta get through all this stuff, but sometimes you just want a big old knockdown, drag out all of your abilities for the toughest of foes with the greatest of minions, and I think there's something special to explore there. So, yeah, we'll talk about that as well, and that's all in the months to come. So, homework for this, really 2 weeks, but homework for now. What is something from all of these snapshots that you might use in your world, game, etc.? I talk about a lot here. There's a lot of ideas, a lot of design. But yeah, what's your thoughts? And actually, to go back for a second, that image on the right there, that is another one done by my friend Olivia. That was the original design for the tower in Lori, where the Booyogs are. So that is that great black iron tower constructed in the middle of the illusion, with people all around it, and you come to see that. And that is where you see all of the hundreds of villagers strung up on the inside, screaming as their life is drained away. She did a really killer job making something look absolutely strange and magical. But, so next time will be next year. I am going to skip next week and head into January. But January, I'm going to start my series on war. Systems for mass combat. Why and how do we fight? I think it's something very important. We see a lot in fantasy and really in any major properties that most of us enjoy, and the nerd things that we like, that there is mass combat. And I want to talk about that. Why do we do it? How do we do it? How do we make it fun and not just a slog? So that is all that I've got at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I can't wait to continue all of this and go from there. I think this is going to be a great system. Going to keep using this setup, make some more complicated sheets and PowerPoint presentations. Not so much on my face. Nothing against my face, but it's not as interesting, and I think there's some cool art and ideas to be able to showcase. So